Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Rowe. We're taking a look at Algebra 1. This is Part A. We're looking at Lesson 1. We're going to talk about some operations and fractions. This should be completely review, so just kind of go through this and make sure that you understand how to add and subtract, multiply and divide using fractions. So just remember some of our basic rules here, whereas we're looking at our first example and the signs are different. We're going to subtract the numbers and then take the sign of the one with the highest absolute value. If the signs are the same, we're going to add the numbers and keep the sign. And then we'll talk about multiplication and division in just a second. But the big thing with fractions is to make sure that anytime you add and subtract, that the first thing you find is the LCD. That's the least common denominator. So if we look at our values in the denominator, 8 and 7, 9 and 7, the smallest number that both of these have in common is 63. So 9 goes into 63 7 times, 7 goes into 63 9 times. So 63 is our common denominator. So we have to get that first. And then we have to find equivalent fractions before we can add or subtract. So we have to take the numerator for the fraction and multiply it by what it takes to get to the denominator. So for example, in order to get 63 from 9, we're going to multiply it by 7. So we'll do the same thing to the numerator. So 8 times 7 is 56, and it will remain negative. Same thing for 7. We're going to multiply it by 9, because 9 times 7 is 63. So we'll do the same thing in the numerator. That'll be 27. And so now we're adding. So now remember, when you add and subtract fractions, the denominator will remain the same, because that's the part. All we're going to do is either add or subtract the numerator. Well, in this case, since the signs are different, we're going to subtract those values. And so that'll become a 16. 16 minus 7 is 9. 4 minus 2 is 2. So this will be 29. And remember, to get the sign, we're going to take the sign of the one with the highest absolute value. Well, this one has the highest absolute value because it is further away from 0. So our final answer will be negative 29 over 63. So find your LCD first, then find the equivalent fractions, and then follow the rules for addition and subtraction. Just a couple other examples here. Here's a subtraction problem. So remember that when we do subtraction, first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our keep, change rule. We're going to change subtraction to addition by adding the opposite. And then we're going to follow the rules for addition and subtraction. So there's two ways to do this particular problem. We can either work with the mixed numbers, or we can change them to improper fractions. I'm going to show you how to just do it with the mixed numbers. I think this one's pretty easy with the mixed numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to a problem since it's addition. We got 1 4/5 plus 2 11 over 20. So the first thing we're going to do, just like we did in the last problem, is get our LCD. LCD, least common denominator. So what do 5 and 20 both divide into? Well, 5 times 4 is 20. So 20 will be the LCD. So sometimes you don't need to multiply both, just need to multiply one. So we're going to change both of these into fractions over 20. And all I'm working with is the fraction part. I don't need to change the whole number part. So the bottom one will remain the same because it's already 20. So what do I do to 5? I multiply it by 4. And 4 times 4 is 16. So now I just add the fraction part, then I add the whole number part. So I'm going to add the fraction part. So all I got to do is add numerators. 16 plus 11 is 27. I'm going to add the whole numbers. 1 plus 2 is 3. Well, I can't leave this like this because 27 is bigger than 20. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide 20 into 27. That gives me 1. I add that 1 to the whole number, making it 4. And then what's left over is 7. So this will be 4 and 7 over 20. And it's positive because both signs are already positive. So that's subtraction with fractions. Here's another subtraction problem. This time I have a fraction and a whole number. So what do I do here? Well, again, you can use the whole number and borrow. I'm going to make this one, I'm going to use improper fractions. I'm going to put this over 1, just because I think a lot of people find this easier. And so what's the common denominator here? The LCD. The LCD is going to be 10. Because 10 times 1 is 10 and 10 times 1 is 10. So here's our LCD. This one will not change. So what do I multiply 1 by to get 10? Well, that's 10. I'm going to multiply the numerator by 10. So that gives me negative 20. Now I've got the same signs. Remember, we're going to change this to add the opposite. So I have the same signs. So I'm going to add these numerators. So negative 20 plus negative 11 is negative 31 over 10. And depending on the problem, you could leave it like that, or you could change it back to a mixed number by dividing. 10 will go into 31 3 times. 1 left over, so this will be negative 3 and 1 10. So that's another subtraction problem with fractions. All right, so let's take a look at multiplication. Multiplication is real easy. You're just going to multiply from left to right. Now there's some other tricks you're going to use. I'm going to show you a few of those tricks. Like in this one, since 8 goes into 16, I can divide. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 16 divided by 8 is 2. That makes the problem a little bit easier. It helps you to reduce later on if you need to. And now we just multiply left to right. 7 times 2, 14. And then right here across the bottom, 1 times 25 is 25. And since they're both positive, guess what? Fine. So just multiply left to right. Don't get confused with cross products. That's a different topic for a different lesson. All right, so here's another one. This time we got mixed numbers. So always turn mixed into improper. You don't have a choice here. Otherwise, you have to do a very long process, which you might as well just go ahead and turn them into improper fractions and do it anyway. So improper fractions, remember, we multiply and then we add. We ignore the sign. So this will be 5 times 1, which is 5. Right here, 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 2 is 7. So this will be negative 7/5 times 8 times 3 is 24. 24 plus 5 is 29. And now this is just a simple multiply straight across problem. And if you've got your calculator, don't be afraid to pull it out. And so here, I'm going to multiply, I'm going to clear that. I'm going to multiply 7 times 29. That gives me 203. And it's going to be negative, because I have 1 positive and 1 negative, over 5 times 4, which is 40. And again, depending on the problem, you can either leave this as an improper fraction, or you can change it back to a mixed number. So let's change it back to a mix just so you can see both. Remember, again, it's 40 into 203. 203, Mr. Rowe, not 205. That's going to be 5 times, because 5 times 40 is 200. And there's going to be 3 left over, so this will turn into negative 5 and 3 over 40. So either one of these is a perfectly acceptable answer depending on the problem. And then what happens if we have multiple things that we're multiplying? Remember that you count the signs first. So I see 2 negative signs, one here and one here. Since there's an even number of negatives, this answer is going to be positive no matter what. So I don't have to worry about signs. Now I just need to multiply. Well, guess what? I've got some things that cancel here. 8 goes into 8 one time. 9 goes into 9 one time. Look how easy this became. It just becomes 7 times 1, which is 7, over 8, or 1 times 11, which is 11. So final answer is positive 7 over 11. So real simple. Count the negatives first, then just multiply. Then finally, let's take a look at one division problem. So again, this is multiplication technically, but it's division. So the first thing we have to do is turn the improper fraction into a mixed number. 7 times 2 is 14. 14 plus 3 is 17. So this will be 17 over 7. Always change division to multiplication. We're going to turn that into multiplication. I don't know what that is, but we're going to erase it and start over. We'll put a multiplication sign there. And then we do the reciprocal of the second fraction. So for division only, multiply by a reciprocal. So we're going to flip the second fraction and change this to multiplication. This will be 14 over 17, and that's still negative. And so now we can do some cross cancelization. 17 goes into 17 one time, so that cancels out. 7 goes into 14 twice. So look how easy this became. We got just 1 times -2, which is -2, over 1 times 1, which is 1. So this becomes -2. So I hope this helps trigger back some of your memories of how to find some operations with fractions. If you struggle with this as you're doing your lesson assignment, please let me know in a teacher message or on the help session.